Time goes by, these theories seem to roll on by. Each one lasts about 10 years, give or take, and then a new one comes along. Don't miss the significance of this. The moon is our nearest neighbor. The moon is 100 million times closer to us than the nearest nighttime star. Yet, there's no convincing science theory for its origin. We don't know where the moon came from in a secular science view. And I would think this certainly raises questions and doubt about all the other origin theories for the comets, for the planets, for the stars, and the galaxies beyond. Let me suggest an alternate to these quick origin theories that we've looked at. I believe that we have a better idea, and that idea is the fourth day of creation. To catch the details of that, you turn to Genesis chapter 1, verse 16, which talks about the wonderful array of the heavens. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and he made the stars also. This is what Isaac Newton believed, and most of the other pioneer astronomers who laid down our whole foundation of our current understanding of the universe. So the suggestion here is that the moon was placed in the sky on the fourth day of the creation week. And I believe the fourth day was chosen just to show us that the moon and the sun and the stars are not all that important. The moon and sun are not to be worshiped. They were on the fourth day. And the idea here is that the origin of the moon is beyond explanation. It's supernatural. Now, in our day, the word supernatural has kind of been defined as superstition. And I believe because of that, modern secular science has impoverished itself. Real science is the search for truth. And this search, of course, leads directly to the creation view. Some of us get intimidated by science sometimes. You read National Geographic magazine, you see all of the equations that the professors in the universities have, and I know it can be worrisome to us. But let me challenge you that science, the study of nature, the study of creation, it's for us. And we should enjoy it most of all because we know who put this universe together, and we know who made the moon. We need to take science back. Let's think about how old the moon is. Just how many years have gone by? Now, the standard view is that the moon is about 4.5 billion years old. That's the same age that they give to the Earth and the solar system. Let's challenge this long age assumption from three different directions. When it comes to age, first of all, something a little bit complicated, let's consider what's called lunar recession. What this describes is that the moon's orbit is actually an outward-going spiral. The distance to the moon is increasing about 1.5 inches, that is about 4 centimeters per year. The moon is slowly moving away from the Earth. We just don't notice it during a lifetime. This distance increase is due to the gravity interaction between the Earth and the moon. The Earth's high tide bulge, which does not occur directly beneath the moon, the Earth's spin carries the high tide mark slightly ahead of the moon. The high tide position is about 10 degrees beyond a straight line between the Earth and the moon. But the fact is, this bulge pulls forward on the moon. It propels it gradually outward and away from the Earth. Just an inch or two increase each year. But now think back in time. This means that a century ago, the moon was about, on the average, 12 feet closer to the Earth. And 6,000 years ago, the moon was about 12 miles closer to the Earth. Now, when you move still further back in time, things get more complicated because this distance change is not linear. In fact, the rate of lunar recession varies very strongly as the sixth power of the distance between the Earth and Moon. If you would, for instance, take the Earth-Moon distance and cut it in half, then this recession is not 4 times greater, and it's not 16 times greater. But again, if you cut the Earth-Moon distance in half, the recession increases by 64 times. This means that the current rate of the Moon leaving the Earth is 4 centimeters per year. But longer ago, it would have been 4 kilometers per year. And still longer ago, 4,000 kilometers per year. When you do all the numbers, they show that on an evolutionary time scale, the Moon would have been in the near vicinity of the Earth about 1 billion years ago. As a result, the Earth would once again be inside, remember the Rausch limit, which breaks up objects like the Moon? And our Moon would be disintegrated into a Saturn-type ring. Now, I'm not saying that the Moon is 1 billion years old. I'm saying that there's a serious problem with the evolutionary time scale where they assume the Moon is several billion years old. It does not work out. And by the way, this Earth-Moon tide interaction that I'm describing also results in a slowing rotation of our planet Earth. Today is about 1/10 of a second longer than a day was 6,000 years ago. It's not enough to notice, but the days truly are getting longer. Let's move on to another idea. This second age concern involves a fascinating story from 8 centuries ago. Back in 1178 AD, stargazers in England reported something significant. They saw a large object hit the Moon. There resulted an explosion and the formation of a new large crater on the Moon. Here's how they describe it. The upper horn of the crescent moon seemed to split into 2 parts. From the division point, hot coals and sparks flew out. This was repeated a dozen times or more. Then the moon took on a blackish appearance for some evenings. We've never seen anything like that, but these medieval stargazers saw this explosion on the moon. This written report of fire on the moon is rejected by almost all astronomers today. After all, they say, lunar cratering surely ceased billions of years ago. A sizable new moon crater is thought to occur at best maybe once every million years or so. And if lunar impacts are truly this rare, then it's highly unlikely that anyone would see a new crater form. And so the conclusion in modern astronomy is that these sky watchers must have been mistaken. But these observers did indeed witness a lunar impact, a new crater forming on the moon. In fact, the resulting crater has been photographed by the Apollo space program and also by the Clementine spacecraft in 1994. This crater has been named Bruno. It's located, let me show you where it is. The next time you have a clear sky and a full moon, it looks something like this, and you can see this with the unaided eye. In the upper right corner is a large dark circle. That's one of these lunar seas. Actually, it's an area of basalt. This one is called the Sea of Chryses. And the crater is actually on the hidden side of the moon. It's right around that upper right corner. They saw the explosion, even though they couldn't see the crater until we started to circle the moon and take some close-up pictures. Again, here's this crater Bruno, which recently formed. It's about 14 miles in diameter. This is 20 times larger than the Barringer crater down in Arizona. This new crater on the moon appears very recent, and the ejected material is on top of the older sediment of the moon. This collision was quite dramatic. It amounts to an explosion of 50,000 megatons of energy. This crater equals 5,000 Mount St. Helens eruptions. And by the way, lunar instruments that were left on the moon by the astronauts have actually detected vibrations of the moon. It's still ringing like a bell ever since this collision 8 centuries ago. It shows that the moon was struck by a heavy blow in recent history. I believe that the formation of Crater Bruno challenges the assumption that the moon has been dead and unchanging for billions of years or more. Creationists see the moon as a young, dynamic satellite of the Earth. On the basis of Crater Bruno, I suggest that the rate of lunar crater formation may be much larger than is assumed, maybe 1,000 times greater. In fact, maybe we could make a creationist prediction that any time during the next few centuries, the moon is due for another a collision and a crater that we might see, so keep an eye on the moon. First we had recession, and then I talked briefly about Crater Bruno. And while we're on craters, how about all of these millions of craters that the moon has? Craters within craters. Where did they all come from? What is the history of these things? Geologists have concluded that the moon experienced a period of intense bombardment during a brief time early in its history. And then ever since, the moon has just been a silent, unchanging museum. Let me illustrate something here. We've had some technical talks this week, and you've seen some complicated graphs. Let me give you an easy one, the simplest graph we will see this week. Now, along the bottom, the horizontal